The bridge of the Imperial cruiser. Dominion hummed with quiet efficiency. Stars stretched past the viewports like frozen tears against the black void of space. Commander Sarah Chen sat in her captain's chair, watching the endless dance of distant suns. After 15 years in the Imperial Navy, she had seen more star systems than most people could imagine, but today felt different. "Commander," called Lieutenant Marcus Webb from the communication station. His young face was tight with concern. "I'm picking up something strange on long-range sensors." Sarah turned toward him, her dark eyes sharp. "Define strange, Lieutenant." "It's a ship, ma'am, but it's not transmitting any identification codes. No registration beacon. Nothing in our database matches its configuration." The bridge fell silent except for the gentle hum of the ship's systems. In the Galactic Empire, every vessel had to be registered. Pirates, traders, military ships, everyone followed that rule. It was the foundation of interstellar law. "Range?" Sarah asked, standing up from her chair. "Approximately 2 million kilometers and closing fast," Webb replied, his fingers dancing across his control panel. "Commander, it's moving at speeds that should be impossible for a ship that size." Chief Engineer Rodriguez looked up from her station. "Ma'am, our sensors show it's nearly as large as a dreadnought, but it's moving like a fighter craft. That shouldn't be possible with current technology." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. She had fought in the border wars, survived pirate attacks, and faced down rebel fleets. But an unregistered ship with impossible capabilities? That was something new. "Put it on the main screen," she ordered. The view screen flickered, and suddenly, they were looking at something that defied explanation. The ship was massive, easily 800 meters long. Its hull was a dark, matte black that seemed to absorb the light from nearby stars. Strange geometric patterns covered its surface, pulsing with a faint blue glow. "Have you ever seen anything like that?" whispered Ensign Park from the navigation station. Nobody answered. They were all staring at the impossible vessel. "Attempt to hail them," Sarah commanded, though she suspected it would be useless. Webb's hands moved across his console. "No response, Commander. They're not acknowledging our signals at all. Try broadcasting on all frequencies, emergency channels, trade languages, even the old rebel codes." Minutes passed. Still nothing. "Commander," Rodriguez called out, her voice strained. "I'm reading some kind of energy buildup from that ship. Power levels are off the charts." Sarah's blood went cold. In space, an energy buildup usually meant weapons charging. "Red alert," she shouted. "All hands to battle stations. Raise shields and power weapons." Alarms began blaring throughout the ship. The bridge lighting shifted to the red battle illumination. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, but Sarah could see the fear in their eyes. "Incoming transmission," Webb announced suddenly. "Put it through." The view screen changed, showing the bridge of the unknown vessel. The figure that appeared made everyone gasp. It looked human, but something was wrong. Its eyes glowed with the same blue light as the ship's hull patterns. When it spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Imperial vessel, you are in violation of forbidden space. Turn back immediately or face the consequences." Sarah stepped forward. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of the Imperial cruiser Dominion. You are in Imperial space without proper identification. State your name and purpose." The figure tilted its head, almost like it was confused by her words. "Imperial space? Your empire exists only because we allow it. Turn back now. This is your final warning." The transmission cut off. "That's impossible," whispered Park. "No one talks to the Empire like that. The Empire controls half the galaxy." But Sarah was remembering something from her academy days. Old stories dismissed as legends. Tales of ships that came from the deep void, crewed by beings that looked human, but weren't quite right. Ships that could appear and disappear at will. "Commander," Rodriguez shouted. "They're firing." A beam of pure blue energy lanced out from the unknown ship. It struck their shields with incredible force, sending the Dominion shaking like a toy in a storm. "Shields down to 60%, reported the tactical officer. "How is that possible? That was just one shot." "Return fire," Sarah ordered. All weapons. The Dominion's plasma cannons and missile tubes erupted in a coordinated barrage. The space between the two ships filled with deadly light. But when the weapons reached the unknown vessel, they simply disappeared. Not deflected by shields, not absorbed. They just vanished as if they had never existed. What just happened? Sarah demanded. I don't know, Commander. The tactical officer replied, his voice shaking. Our weapons just stopped existing when they got close to their ship. The unknown vessel fired again. This time the beam cut through their shields like they weren't even there. Hull breach on Deck 7, someone shouted. Emergency teams to Deck 7, Sarah ordered. Then, thinking quickly, she turned to Webb. Send an immediate priority message to Imperial Command. Tell them we've encountered an unknown vessel with technology far beyond anything in our database. Include all sensor data. Message sent, Commander. Another blue beam struck the ship. The lights flickered, and Sarah could smell something burning. Commander, Rodriguez said urgently, if they hit us like that a few more times, we're not going to survive this. Sarah looked at the view screen where the impossible ship continued its approach. Its blue patterns pulsed faster now, like a heartbeat before battle. Helm, emergency jump to hyperspace. Get us out of here. Hyperspace drive is offline, the helmsman reported. Something about that energy beam, it's disrupted our jump capability. They were trapped. Outgunned by technology they couldn't understand, facing an enemy that claimed the entire galactic empire existed only by their permission. Sarah gripped the arms of her command chair as another blast shook the ship. Whatever was happening here was bigger than a simple border incident. This could change everything they thought they knew about the galaxy, and they were probably going to die before they could warn anyone. The unknown vessel continued its approach, its blue glow growing brighter with each passing second. Chapter 2. The revelation the Dominion shuddered under another devastating impact. Sparks flew from damaged consoles as the crew struggled to keep their ship together. Hull integrity down to 40%. Rodriguez shouted over the noise of failing systems. Sarah watched the tactical display with growing desperation. The unknown vessel hadn't even moved closer. It was still 2 million kilometers away, picking them apart with impossible accuracy. Commander, Webb called out, I'm receiving another transmission from the unknown vessel. Put it through. Through. Blue-eyed figure appeared on screen again. This time Sarah could see more of the bridge behind it. The surfaces looked organic somehow, like they had been grown rather than built. Other figures moved in the background, all with the same unsettling blue glow in their eyes. Your ship is disabled, the figure said. You cannot escape. We offer you one final choice: surrender and be taken aboard our vessel, or die when your ship's reactor fails. Our reactor is fine, Sarah replied defiantly. The figure smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Check again. Rodriguez's face went pale as she looked at her readings. Commander, our reactor containment is failing. We have maybe 10 minutes before it goes critical. That's impossible. Their weapons never hit engineering. I don't understand it either, but the readings don't lie. Something is causing a cascade failure in the containment field. Sarah felt the weight of command crushing down on her. She had 47 crew members depending on her decision. She could let them all die fighting, or surrender to an enemy they knew nothing about. What do you want with us? She asked the figure on the screen. Information. You will tell us about your empire's current capabilities. In return, we will spare your lives. And if we refuse? Then you die here, and we learn what we need from the next Imperial ship we encounter. Sarah looked around her bridge. These were good people. Young Webb with his newborn daughter back on Earth, Rodriguez who had served with honor for 20 years, Park who dreamed of commanding his own ship someday. She couldn't let them die for pride. We surrender, she said quietly. The figure nodded. Wise, you will be transported shortly. The transmission ended, and immediately the Dominion began to shake again. But this time, it wasn't weapons fire. Blue light surrounded the ship, and Sarah felt a strange tingling sensation. What's happening? Park asked nervously. Before anyone could answer, the bridge around them began to fade. Sarah felt herself becoming lighter, as if gravity was losing its grip. The familiar sounds of her ship grew distant and hollow. Then everything went white. When Sarah's vision cleared, she found herself standing in a vast chamber aboard the unknown vessel. The walls curved organically around them, covered in the same pulsing blue patterns they had seen on the ship's exterior. Her entire crew was there, looking around in confusion and fear. The blue-eyed figure approached them. Up close, Sarah could see that it definitely looked human, but something was fundamentally wrong. Its movements were too fluid, too graceful. Its skin had an almost translucent quality. "Welcome aboard the Ascendant," it said. "I am Kale First, navigator of the Precursor fleet." "Precursor?" Sarah asked. The word stirred something in her memory. Ancient legends from the Academy. "Your people have forgotten us, but we have not forgotten you," Kyle replied. 50,000 years ago, we seeded the galaxy with life. We guided the evolution of dozens of species, including your own. We are your creators." The chamber fell, silent. Sarah felt the weight of this revelation settling over her crew like a heavy blanket. "That's impossible," Webb whispered. "Humans evolved on Earth. We have fossil records, genetic evidence." Kyle turned those unsettling blue eyes toward him. "Evidence we allowed you to find. Your species needed to believe in its independence, its natural development. But the truth is different." He gestured, and the walls around them became transparent, showing the void of space beyond. But instead of empty darkness, Sarah saw dozens of ships identical to the Ascendant, arranged in perfect formation. "The Precursor fleet," Kyle continued. "We have watched from the deep void as your empire expanded across the galaxy. We allowed it because it served our purposes, but now you have gone too far." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked, though she was afraid of the answer. "Your empire has begun experimenting with dimensional technology, weapons that can tear holes in reality itself. This cannot be allowed to continue." Sarah felt her blood turn to ice. She knew about the classified weapons research, the projects that were supposedly theoretical only. If the Empire was actually building dimensional weapons— "You're here to stop us," she said. "We are here to restore order," Kel corrected. "Your empire has forgotten its place in the cosmic hierarchy. It has grown arrogant, believing itself the master of the galaxy. This delusion ends now." A new voice spoke from behind them. "The commander is correct. We have come to reclaim what was always ours." Sarah turned to see another figure approaching. This one was different, taller, with eyes that glowed not blue but gold. When it moved, reality seemed to bend slightly around it. "I am Zara, High Arbiter of the Precursor Council," the figure announced. "Commander Chen, your empire has exactly 72 hours to surrender all dimensional weapons research and submit to Precursor Authority. If it refuses, we will demonstrate why we ruled the galaxy long before your species learned to make fire." "The Empire will never surrender," Sarah said, though her voice lacked conviction. Zara smiled. "Perhaps you should see what you're truly dealing with." She raised her hand, and suddenly Sarah's mind was flooded with images. Fleets of precursor ships, thousands of them, emerging from hiding places throughout the galaxy. Entire star systems, under their control, civilizations that had served them for millennia. Technology so advanced it seemed like magic, and at the center of it all, a massive structure the size of a small moon, bristling with weapons that could destroy planets with a single shot. "The Nexus Command," Zara explained, "our primary stronghold hidden for 50,000 years in the galactic core. From there we have watched and waited. Now the waiting is over." Sarah staggered as the visions ended. Her crew looked at her with concern, but she could barely focus on their faces. The scale of what they were facing was overwhelming. "Why show us this?" she managed to ask. "Because you will carry a message back to your empire," Kyle replied. "You will tell them what you have seen. You will warn them that their time of dominance is ending." "And if they don't listen?" Zara's golden eyes flared. "Then we will remind the galaxy why every species that has ever lived feared the name Precursor. We will show them the price of defying the natural order." Sarah felt a familiar tingling sensation. The transport beam was activating again. "Wait," she called out. If you created us, if you guided our evolution, why are you doing this? Why turn against your own children? Kyle's expression softened, slightly. Because a child who refuses to obey its parents must be disciplined. We gave you life, Commander Chen. We can take it away just as easily. The white light consumed them again, and Sarah found herself back on the bridge of the Dominion. Around her, her crew materialized one by one, all looking shaken by what they had experienced. Status report, she said automatically, trying to focus on immediate concerns. Reactor containment is stable, Rodriguez reported, sounding confused. All systems are operating normally. It's like the damage never happened. Through the viewports, they could see the precursor fleet in the distance, their blue lights pulsing in perfect synchronization. Then, one by one, the ships simply vanished, leaving empty space behind. Commander, Webb said quietly. What do we do now? Sarah looked at her crew. Good, loyal Imperial officers who had just learned that everything they believed about their place in the universe was a lie. They were expecting her to have answers, to know what to do next. But how do you prepare for a war against gods? Set course for the nearest Imperial outpost, she ordered. Maximum speed. We need to get this information to command as quickly as possible. As the Dominion jumped to hyperspace, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were already too late. The precursors had given the Empire 72 hours, but even if command believed their impossible story, how could the Empire possibly stand against beings who had ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years? The countdown had begun, and Sarah feared they were all racing toward the end of everything. They knew. Chapter 3. The Empire's response. The Imperial Command Center on Corrales Prime buzzed with frantic activity. Admiral Harrison Cross stood before a massive holographic display showing the galaxy, his weathered face grim as he processed Commander Chen's report. Play the sensor logs again, he ordered. The technicians complied, and once more the assembled officers watched the impossible battle between the Dominion and the precursor vessel. The way their weapons simply vanished, the casual demonstration of power that had left an Imperial cruiser helpless. It defied everything they knew about warfare. Admiral, said General Morrison, the Empire's top military strategist. With respect, this has to be some kind of hoax. Beings that created humanity? Ships that can make our weapons disappear? It sounds like science fiction. Cross turned to study the man. Morrison was brilliant, but he had never served on the frontier. He had never seen the strange things that lurked in the deep void between stars. Commander Chen is one of our most decorated officers, Cross replied. Her record is impeccable, and the sensor data is real. Our best analysts have confirmed it. Then explain it, Morrison challenged. Show me how a ship can make plasma beams and missiles just vanish. I can't, Cross admitted, but that doesn't make it false. There are 47 crew members who experienced this, General. Are you suggesting they're all lying? A new voice cut through the argument. They're not lying, but they may not be telling the complete truth either. Everyone turned to see Dr. Elena Vasquez, the Empire's leading xenobiologist, entering the command center. She looked tired, like she had been working without sleep. Explain, Cross ordered. Vasquez moved to the holographic display and manipulated it, bringing up genetic charts and evolutionary trees. I've been reviewing our archaeological and genetic databases, she said, looking for any evidence that might support this precursor claim. What I found is disturbing. The display shifted to show DNA sequences. Humans have what we call junk DNA, genetic material that appears to serve no function. But when you look at it closely, it's not random. There are patterns, structures, that suggest artificial design, Morrison scoffed. You're seeing patterns where none exist. Am I? Vasquez challenged. She manipulated the display again, and the junk DNA sequences began arranging themselves into recognizable structures. This isn't random mutation, General. This is programming. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. There's more, Vasquez continued. I've found similar patterns in the genetic codes of 17 other species throughout the Empire. All of them show signs of artificial manipulation at some point in their evolutionary history. Admiral Cross felt a chill run down his spine. You're saying they're telling the truth? That we were created? I'm saying the evidence supports their claim, Vasquez replied carefully. But Admiral, there's something else. Something Commander Chen's report didn't mention. She changed the display again, showing star charts with highlighted regions. For the past 6 months, we've been receiving reports of strange activity in these sectors. Ships appearing and disappearing without using hyperspace lanes. Entire colonies going silent without explanation. We attributed it to pirate activity, or system failures. But now you think it was them, Cross said. It wasn't a question. I think they've been preparing for this for much longer than 72 hours, Vasquez confirmed. Admiral, if they've been watching us for 50,000 years, they know everything about our capabilities. Our weapons, our tactics, our defensive positions. We have no advantages. General Morrison stepped forward, his face flushed with anger. I don't care if they created us or not. The Empire doesn't bow to anyone. We have 1 million ships, 10,000 worlds. If they want a war, they'll get one. With what? Vasquez asked quietly. Our conventional weapons can't touch them. They demonstrated that clearly enough. Then we use the new weapons, Morrison replied. The dimensional research projects. If they're so worried about them, they must be effective. Cross felt his blood run cold. General, those projects are strictly theoretical. We don't even know if they work. Then maybe it's time to find out. Before Cross could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the command center. A communications officer turned from his station, face pale with shock. Admiral, we're receiving priority transmissions from 17 different sectors. They're all reporting the same thing. Massive fleets appearing out of nowhere. The holographic display changed to show real-time reports flooding in from across the Empire. At Rigel Station, unknown vessels requesting immediate surrender of all Imperial forces. At the Centauri shipyards, hostile fleet blocking all shipping lanes. At New Terra, they're demanding access to all dimensional research facilities. How many ships? Cross asked, though he dreaded the answer. Unknown, sir. Every report says too many to count. Morrison grabbed the nearest communication panel. This is General Morrison to all Imperial fleets. Battle condition Alpha. All ships to combat readiness. Prepare for hostile contact. General, stop, Cross ordered. We need to think about this. There's nothing to think about, Admiral. They've made their intentions clear. This is war. But before Morrison could continue, the lights in the command center dimmed. A familiar blue glow began emanating from the walls themselves, and suddenly the air shimmered. Kyle materialized in the center of the room, his blue eyes scanning the assembled officers with casual indifference. Your 72-hour period has been reduced, he announced calmly. Your Empire's military response has forced our hand. General Morrison reached for his sidearm, but found his hand frozen in place. Around the room, other officers discovered they couldn't move at all. Violence is unnecessary, Kyle continued. We are here to offer you one final chance for peaceful resolution. Admiral Cross found he could still speak. What do you want? Complete surrender of all Imperial military forces. Immediate cessation of dimensional weapons research. Transfer of all governing authority to precursor administrators. And if we refuse? Kale gestured, and the holographic display changed to show a real-time view of the Imperial fleet gathered at Arcturus. Cross watched in horror as a single precursor vessel appeared among them. It fired once, a brilliant beam of golden light that struck the flagship, a massive dreadnought with armor thick enough to withstand asteroid impacts. The dreadnought simply ceased to exist, not destroyed, not vaporized. It was there one moment, gone the next, as if it had never been built. That was one ship, Kale said. We have 10,000. The room was deadly quiet. Cross could hear his own heartbeat thundering in his ears. You have 6 hours to make your decision. Kyle continued. Surrender or watch your empire burn. There will be no negotiation, no compromise. Choose wisely. He began to fade, but then paused. Oh, and General Morrison? If you attempt to use your dimensional weapons, we will consider it an act of genocide against the galaxy itself. The consequences will be severe. Kyle vanished, leaving the officers alone with their fear and the weight of an impossible choice. Morrison was the first to break the silence. We can't surrender. We can't just give up everything we've built. What choice do we have? Cross asked. You saw what they did to the Sovereign. Our most powerful ship eliminated like it was nothing. Then, we use the weapons they're afraid of, Morrison insisted. The dimensional research must be our trump card or they wouldn't be so concerned about it. Dr. Vasquez shook her head. General, we don't even know what those weapons might do. They could tear holes in space-time itself. The risks are irrelevant. Morrison cut her off. Sometimes you have to risk everything to save everything. Cross looked around the command center at his officers. Some looked terrified, others angry. A few resigned. They were good people, loyal to the Empire, but they were facing something beyond their comprehension. Admiral, the communications officer, called out. We're receiving surrender requests from Imperial governors throughout the Outer Rim. They're saying precursor fleets have surrounded their systems. The Empire was crumbling. 50,000 years of human expansion and achievement, reduced to begging for mercy from their creators. But Cross remembered something from Commander Chen's report. The way the precursor called Kyle had hesitated when she asked why they were doing this. The slight softening in his expression. Maybe, just maybe, there was another way. General Morrison, Cross said finally, you have authorization to activate the dimensional research projects, but as a last resort only. And what are you going to do? Cross straightened his uniform and looked out at the stars beyond the command center's windows. Somewhere out there, Commander Chen and her crew were racing back toward Imperial space, carrying the weight of humanity's future. I'm going to try something that either saves us all or gets us killed even faster, he said. I'm going to negotiate with gods. As alarms continued to sound throughout the command center and reports of precursor fleets poured in from across the galaxy, Cross began composing a message that would determine the fate of the Empire. The clock was ticking, and humanity was running out of time. Chapter 4. The final Gambit Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Dominion as they dropped out of hyperspace near Corrales Prime. What she saw made her heart sink. The Empire's capital system was surrounded by hundreds of precursor vessels, their blue patterns pulsing in perfect coordination like the heartbeat of some massive organism. My God, whispered Lieutenant Webb. There are so many of them. Commander, came Admiral Cross's voice over the communication system. Proceed to Docking Bay 7 immediately. We have much to discuss. 20 minutes later, Sarah found herself in the Imperial Command Center, facing the grim expressions of the Empire's top leadership. Admiral Cross looked like he had aged 10 years in the past few hours. Report, Commander, he ordered. Sarah gave a concise summary of everything they had experienced aboard the precursor vessel. When she finished, the room was silent except for the distant hum of the station's life support systems. They gave us 6 hours, Cross said finally. That was 4 hours ago. Sir, Sarah said carefully, permission to speak freely? Granted. Admiral, we can't win this fight. Not with conventional weapons, whatever they are, wherever they come from. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours, maybe millennia. General Morrison stepped forward, his face flushed with anger. So you're suggesting we just surrender, give up everything our species has built? I'm suggesting we survive, sir. Dead heroes can't protect anyone. There is another option, Dr. Vasquez interjected. She looked nervous, but determined. The Dimensional Weapons Project. We've completed the first prototype. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Dr. Vasquez, the precursor called Kale, specifically warned against using those weapons. He said the consequences would be severe. Maybe that's because they're afraid of them, Morrison replied. Maybe we've finally developed something that can hurt them. Or maybe, Sarah said quietly, they're afraid of what those weapons might do to the rest of us. Before anyone could respond, the lights dimmed again. The Familiar blue glow began emanating from the walls, but this time it was different. Brighter, more intense. 3 figures materialized in the center of the room. Kale was there, along with the golden-eyed Zara. But the third figure was new, ancient beyond description, with eyes that seemed to hold the light of dying stars. "I am Kronos," the ancient being said, its voice seeming to come from the depths of time itself. First of the precursors, architect of the great design, Admiral Cross stepped forward, trying to project authority despite the obvious power difference. "We're prepared to negotiate." "There is nothing to negotiate," Kronos interrupted. "Your time has expired. Surrender now, or face extinction." "Wait," Sarah said, surprising herself by speaking up. "Please just listen for a moment." The 3 precursors turned their attention to her. She felt the weight of their gaze like a physical pressure. "You said you created us," she continued, "that you guided our evolution, watched over us for 50,000 years. If that's true, then we're your children. And what parent destroys their children for making mistakes?" Kale's expression softened slightly, just as it had aboard the Ascendant. But Kronos showed no emotion at all. "Children who threaten the stability of the galaxy must be corrected," the ancient being replied. "Your dimensional research risks tearing holes in reality itself. We will not allow that." "Then help us," Sarah pleaded. "If we're making dangerous mistakes, teach us better ways. You have 50,000 years of knowledge. Use it to guide us, not destroy us." Zara stepped forward, her golden eyes flaring. "Your species has proven incapable of restraint. You expand endlessly, consume resources without thought for consequences, develop weapons of mass destruction. You are a virus that will spread until it destroys everything." "That's not true," Dr. Vasquez interjected. "Yes, we've made mistakes, but we've also created art, music, literature. We've explored the stars, saved dying species, built civilizations that celebrate life and knowledge, all while developing weapons that could unmake the universe," Kronos replied coldly. "General Morrison chose that moment to make the worst possible decision." "Enough of this," he shouted, reaching for his communication device. "All units, activate Protocol 7. Deploy dimensional weapons now! No!" Sarah screamed, but it was too late. Morrison's order went out across the Imperial fleet. In 17 different star systems, massive weapons platforms began powering up, devices that had been designed to tear holes in space-time itself, creating artificial black holes or dimensional rifts that could destroy entire fleets. The effect on the precursors was immediate and terrifying. Kronos's eyes blazed like supernovas, and when he spoke, reality itself seemed to bend around his words. "Fools, you know not what you have done." The dimensional weapons fired across the galaxy. For a moment, Sarah thought Morrison might have been right. The exotic energy beams struck several precursor vessels, and some actually seemed to take damage. But then the side effects began. Space itself started to fracture. In the Vega system, a dimensional rift opened and began consuming the local star. At Proxima Station, reality became unstable. Ships began aging decades in seconds, while others were pulled into parallel dimensions. "My God," whispered Dr. Vasquez, "the weapons are destabilizing space-time on a galactic scale." Kronos raised his hand, and suddenly every dimensional weapon in the galaxy simply stopped working. The exotic energy dissipated harmlessly, the rifts began to close, but the damage was already spreading. "You have forced our hand," the ancient precursor said, his voice filled with something that might have been sadness. "We cannot allow this contamination to spread." "What are you going to do?" Admiral Cross asked, though he clearly feared the answer. "What we should have done long ago," Zara replied. "Correct our mistake in creating your species." Sarah felt desperation clawing at her chest. Everything was falling apart. Morrison's reckless gambit had not only failed but made things infinitely worse. But then she remembered something. The hesitation she had seen in Kale's expression. The way he had called them. Children in need of discipline, not enemies to be destroyed. "Kyle," she said, addressing the blue-eyed precursor directly. You don't want to do this, do you? You still care about us. Kyle glanced at Kronos, then back at Sarah. My feelings are irrelevant. The decision has been made. No, Sarah insisted. If you created us, if you guided our evolution, then part of you lives in us. You made us curious, determined, capable of both great compassion and terrible mistakes. That's what it means to be human. It's what makes us your children. She stepped closer, ignoring the energy that crackled around the three precursors. You could have created perfect servants, she continued. Beings who never questioned, never rebelled, never made mistakes. But you didn't. You made us flawed and free. That was your choice. Don't destroy us for being exactly what you designed us to be. The room fell silent. Sarah could hear her own heartbeat, the quiet hum of the station's systems, the distant sound of alarms from ships throughout the fleet. Finally, Kyle spoke. She has a point, Kronos. We did design them to be independent, to grow beyond our original parameters. And look what that independence has brought, Zara replied harshly. Chaos, destruction. They nearly unraveled the fabric of space itself. Because they didn't know better, Kale argued. We kept our existence secret from them. We let them develop dangerous technologies without guidance. Perhaps the fault is partly ours. Kronos studied Sarah with those ancient star-filled eyes. When he spoke, his voice was softer than before. You would have us become teachers rather than executioners. I would have you be parents, Sarah replied. Real parents. The kind who correct their children's mistakes without destroying them in the process. A long moment passed. Then Kronos turned to his companions. The dimensional contamination is contained, he said finally. The immediate threat has passed. What are you suggesting? Zara asked. Perhaps it is time to end the great hiding, Kronos replied. To take our proper place as guides rather than shadows. Sarah felt a surge of hope, but she was afraid to believe it might actually work. Kronos faced Admiral Cross. Your empire will submit to precursor oversight. All dimensional weapons. Research will cease immediately. Your military expansion will be curtailed, and your leaders will accept precursor advisors. And in return? Cross asked. In return, your species survives. More than that, you will be given access to technologies that will benefit all life in the galaxy. You will learn to explore space without destroying it, to advance without consuming everything in your path. General Morrison stepped forward, his face red with anger. This is capitulation. We're surrendering our independence. You're ensuring our survival, Sarah countered. General, they could wipe us out in an instant. Instead, they're offering to help us become better than we are. Morrison looked around the room, seeking support, but found none. Even his own staff were nodding in agreement with Sarah's words. Admiral Cross straightened his uniform and looked directly at Kronos. On behalf of the Galactic Empire, I accept your terms. The ancient precursor nodded slowly. Then let this mark the beginning of a new age. The age of guided growth, where parent and child work together toward a better future. Kyle stepped forward. Commander Chen, your wisdom and courage have saved both our species from a tragic mistake. You will serve as humanity's first ambassador to the Precursor Council. Sarah felt the weight of that responsibility settling on her shoulders. I accept, but only if my crew can serve with me. They've been through this from the beginning. They deserve to be part of what comes next. Agreed, Kale replied with something that might have been a smile. As the three precursors began to fade, Kronos spoke one final time. The transition will not be easy. There will be resistance, fear, those who cannot accept change. But together, we will build something greater than either of our species could achieve alone. The precursors vanished, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Admiral Cross was the first to speak. Well, Commander Chen, it looks like your real mission is just beginning. Sarah nodded, looking out at the stars where precursor and Imperial ships now flew together in formation. The galaxy had changed forever in the space of a few hours. Humanity was no longer alone, no longer the masters of their own destiny. But maybe, just maybe, they were finally going to learn how to be something better. Lieutenant Webb, she said, turning to her communications officer. Send a message to all Imperial fleets. Tell them to stand down and prepare for new orders. The war is over, and the new age begins. Webb replied, his voice filled with cautious hope. As Sarah watched the mixed fleet of human and precursor vessels beginning to coordinate their movements, she couldn't help but wonder what challenges lay ahead. Learning to work with beings who had shaped the galaxy for 50,000 years wouldn't be easy. There would be cultural clashes, political difficulties, and the enormous challenge of integrating technologies separated by millennia of development. But for the first time since this crisis began, she felt genuinely hopeful about humanity's future. Epilogue, 6 months later. The space station. New Harmony orbited the neutral world of Kepler Prime, serving as the first joint human precursor facility in galactic history. Commander Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck watching as ships from dozens of species docked at the massive structure. Quite a sight, isn't it? Came a familiar voice behind her. Sarah turned to see Kale approaching, his blue eyes reflecting the light from the nearby star. Over the past 6 months, she had learned to read his expressions better. Today, he looked pleased. The Andorian delegation arrived this morning, she said. That makes 12 species that have requested to join the new Galactic Cooperative. 13, Kale corrected. The Crystalline Collective sent their acceptance while you were sleeping. Sarah smiled. The Crystalline Collective was notoriously isolationist. Their decision to join the cooperative was a major victory for the new system of galactic governance. How are things on Earth? Kyle asked. Better than expected, Sarah replied. There were riots at first, protests about surrendering to alien overlords. But when the precursor medical technology started curing diseases we thought were incurable, public opinion shifted quickly. And the military? Sarah's expression grew more serious. General Morrison is still in prison for his unauthorized use of dimensional weapons, but most of the officer corps has adapted well to the new joint command structure. Admiral Cross says training exercises with precursor vessels have been educational. Kale made a sound that might have been laughter. I imagine they have been. Your military tactics are creative if inefficient. Speaking of inefficient, Sarah said, how's the cultural exchange program going? Slowly. Kronos still doesn't understand human humor, and Zara is baffled by your concept of recreational activities. But progress is being made. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the bustling activity around the station. Human engineers worked alongside precursor technicians, sharing knowledge that was revolutionizing technology throughout the galaxy. Scientific teams were exploring new frontiers of physics and biology. Diplomatic corps from dozens of worlds were learning to work together. Do you ever regret it? Sarah asked quietly. Revealing yourselves? Ending 50,000 years of hidden guidance? Kale considered the question carefully. Sometimes. The old way was simpler, but simplicity isn't always better. Your species taught us that. How so? For 50 millennia, we guided from the shadows, believing we knew what was best for every civilization. But we became stagnant, unchanging. Your rebellion, your refusal to accept limits, has forced us to grow as well. A soft chime indicated an incoming message. Sarah activated her personal communicator to find Lieutenant Webb's face appearing in the holographic display. Commander, he said, we're receiving reports of unusual activity in the outer spiral. Unknown energy signatures, possibly another hidden civilization. Sarah and Kale exchanged glances. In the past 6 months, they had discovered that the precursors weren't the only ancient race hiding in the galaxy. 3 other species had revealed themselves, each with their own history of secret observation and guidance. On our way, Sarah replied, closing the communication. As they walked toward the command center, Kale spoke thoughtfully. You know, when we first decided to reveal ourselves, I thought we would be teaching you how to better manage the galaxy. I never expected to learn so much in return. What have you learned? That chaos isn't always destructive. That imperfection can be beautiful. that sometimes the best solutions come from the most unlikely sources. They entered the bustling command center where human and precursor officers worked side by side, analyzing the new signals from the outer spiral. The sight still amazed Sarah. Beings separated by 50,000 years of development, learning from each other as equals. Commander Chen called out Dr. Vasquez from the science station. The energy patterns match theoretical models for quantum consciousness transfer. We might be looking at a machine intelligence of vast scope. Recommendations? Sarah asked. Caution, Vasquez replied, but also opportunity. If it's truly a quantum AI, it could revolutionize our understanding of consciousness itself. Sarah looked at Kale. Well, Ambassador, ready for another first contact situation? With humans as my partners? Kale's blue eyes gleamed with something that was definitely amusement. I wouldn't have it any other way. As the crew of New Harmony began preparing for humanity's next encounter with the unknown, Sarah reflected on how much had changed. 6 months ago, humans believed they were the dominant species in the galaxy. Now they knew they were part of something far larger and more complex. The galaxy was full of wonders they had never imagined, challenges they couldn't face alone, and opportunities that would take generations to fully explore. But for the first time in human history, they weren't facing the unknown by themselves. They had family among the stars, and that, Sarah thought as she watched the mixed crew prepare for their next adventure, made all the difference. The future was uncertain as it always had been, but now it was uncertain in the best possible way, full of potential, guided by wisdom and built on the foundation of species learning to work together rather than merely coexist. The age of human dominance was over. The age of galactic cooperation had begun, and the universe was vast enough for all the wonders yet to come. The end.